If you don't know your numbers, you don't know your business.
Lululemon had kind of come in and said, okay, we're just going to let them take activewear. And I said, what is next?
This is Kady Zinke, founder and CEO of KADYLUXE, a 100% women-owned fashion house. She went from a Kickstarter campaign and a garage in Denver to partnerships with the Denver Broncos, Dallas Cowboys, Chicago Bulls, and over 50 NCAA teams. This is how she did it.
Making the bold moves matters because that's what other people are not doing.
And our contact at Broncos was like, it's selling out, it's selling out. And the game hadn't started, like I hadn't even got there. She's like, I think we're sold out, Kady.
Welcome to the Purpose Profit Shift, where real stories about bold shifts illuminate how we can create a new economy. I'm your host, Rachel Bernier Green, social entrepreneur, activist, and founder of EJ Consortium, a finance consulting firm designed to help purposeful businesses change the world. Today's guest is Kady Zinke, founder and CEO of KADYLUXE, a 100% woman-owned, founder-led fashion house that's gone from a Kickstarter campaign in a garage in Denver to partnerships with over 50 NCAA universities and major professional sports teams, including the Denver Broncos, the Dallas Cowboys, and my absolute favorite, the Chicago Bulls. Kady started her career as a professional dancer for the NBA's Denver Nuggets, and when the industry couldn't offer what she needed, she built it herself. Surviving stolen funds, burnout, and head-to-head competition with Lululemon along the way. She joins us today to share how she turned pain, purpose, and a queen chess piece into a brand that's rewriting the rules for women in sports fashion. Let's dive in. Kady, thank you so much for joining me today.
You bet. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So before we jump in, can you just tell the listeners, because I've had the pleasure of learning about KADYLUXE as I did my research for the episode, but can you just share a little bit more about the company and what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So the brand KADYLUXE, we are a founder-led, like you said, fashion house, we like to call ourselves, because we really design for those fans out there. We started in the activewear space originally, but now we've really grown and expanded, picking up a bunch of license across the NCAA, across the country. And we started in college there with my alma mater, University of Arizona. And then we've just expanded in those markets. And we also designed for the NBA, the NHL, and now for the NFL, we have the Denver Broncos and the Dallas Cowboys. And really, the apparel that we're doing is, I think we're meeting the market because a lot of these women just haven't been seen. And they are massive fans. I think I read a stat the other day that women right now, 75% of women are sports fans. And a lot of these teams are swaying, the women audience is swaying higher than the male audience. And so I think it's really exciting to be the leader in that space and to see the response these women have when they get to wear sweaters and knitwear and fun jackets and just things that feel girly and, aren't a step down from where they shop for their everyday.
Yes. And I personally love this because as a sports fan myself, I have been mostly relegated to like shopping in the children's section or repurposing like children's jerseys to like make them fancier to fit myself. And so I absolutely love what you're doing and just had so much fun browsing through the website and seeing how how much I would love wearing these clothes, that they weren't just things that were basically made for men that I was buying a smaller size in, that they were something that both embraced the sports that I loved and my femininity.
Yeah, I think a lot of women they've coined that term pink it, shrink it. It's exciting. I mean, everybody has plenty of fleece, plenty of t-shirts, plenty of those t-shirts and jerseys, like you said. And it's just so rare to go into a sports team store and find, a high-end sweater that is Denver Broncos, that's like made of merino wool, that's beautiful and just, yeah, it's really fun.
So, Kady, take us back to when your journey started on the NBA courts as a dancer for the Denver Nuggets. So what was it like on those hardwood floors, and when did you first realize that it was maybe planting the seeds for something bigger?
Yeah, let's see. So I danced in the NBA in 2011, 2012 for the Nuggets. Um, I hadn't dabbled in the KADYLUXE land yet, but I had been having a lot of these visions and dreams about wanting to create my own company. and be more of an entrepreneur, because I had been a ballerina and a dancer and trying to be an actress and was living in Los Angeles. So when I came over back to Colorado and I danced for the Nuggets, as a pro dancer, it was just so, I think that's when my eyes opened up, because we would get apparel and it would get divvied out to all the girls. And I was just shocked at the quality and the lack of items that we would receive. And then it was like, well, go down to the team store and find something. And we got a discount. So we'd run, we'd get excited to go in there. And the women's section was like itty bitty, if it even existed. And like you said, you'd go to the children's section and you'd get one of the little t-shirts or something. So, it sparked a fire inside me to be like, wow, these ladies are super underserved. And at the time, I wouldn't have coined me as a real sports fan. I was more of a dancer cheerleader. And, over the years that has changed. But I just can relate to female sports fans because it's the passion that you have for the team. And it's really that fandom that lights me up to be able to design and for women like that, because I have that same passion.
And as I was researching for the episode, one of the things that I heard you say is that the Rumi quote, "What you seek is seeking you," has really guided your journey. So how has that philosophy shaped your entrepreneurial journey?
Well, I love Rumi. It's all just beautiful, beautiful, just beautiful person. So let's see. What you seek is seeking you. What does that mean to me? It means a lot. I think that you can magnetize and manifest anything you want in this life and truly create heaven on earth and your own dream. I mean, my journey, for me, I didn't have a formal education in fashion. I didn't have any connections in the apparel world, and it was a very close-knit world. There weren't people that you could go easily find to consult with, or nowadays you can get on TikTok or Instagram or YouTube, and there's so many videos and resources. And the idea of going overseas, it was foreign. Like, where do you go? And so I feel like that quote just kind of drove me through my journey, because I never lost faith that, what you seek is seeking you. Whatever you really dream up of, if you truly believe, like, it will show up in your physical 3D world.
Yeah. And I think that is evidenced by your journey in so many ways, especially when I was looking at the Kickstarter that you had. So you had this idea for a padded knee pant, and that came from your days as a dancer. So can you talk about the Kickstarter moment and what led you to create it and how it felt when you actually raised tens of thousands of dollars because people believed in the idea?
Yeah. So that goes back to my Nuggets days. Originally, I didn't seek out apparel in the fan space. I wasn't like, I'm going to make apparel for sports fans. The first product that I thought that I was going to make was something that I actually needed as a dancer, which was a knee padded legging. I had no idea how to make it. I have no engineering background, but I was determined that this knee pad was going to be this beautiful legging, and I was starting to try to make leggings down in the Los Angeles apparel district. So I was kind of flying back and forth. And, because we would go out on the court and our knees would get bruised. And our coach would say, hey, bring your knee pads. And we would kind of look around like, what do you mean our knee pads? There's no dance knee pads. So some girls a volleyball knee pad and they'd look real goofy. The rest of us would suffer with just bruised knees. And then, we'd have a performance and can't wear anything. And so that's why I was like, wow, this is something. And one of my mentors early on he told me, find something that you need, like fill a gap, fill a market, fill a little niche market. And so that's what he asked me. He's like, what do dancers need? Dance. And I said, you need a knee pad. So we did do a Kickstarter. I did have a partner at the time when I first started my journey. And, Kickstarter was newer in those days. And so it was really exciting. We didn't know if we were going to raise the funds, and $23,000. I think we set a goal of 20 or 25, and it seemed like so much. It makes me kind of chuckle now because it's such a nominal amount of money in the world of business. But we were pretty smart, because instead of just doing a regular campaign, I think where we got pretty savvy was we hosted a ginormous Kickstarter launch party at the Four Seasons in Denver. And we had 400 plus attendees show up that night. And where we went wrong is we weren't sharp enough to know, hey, wow, the bar is going to have an incredible night. It happened to be one of their largest nights at this bar. And we should have negotiated like, okay, 5 or 10% of bar proceeds should be donated into our Kickstarter because we would have raised the funds that night. We didn't do that, so that was a bummer, but it was an incredible turnout. We had a huge party. We launched the video in the bar. When we hit those dollars, I think, we just celebrated and cried. It was kind of our first big win.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that even though you said, in the grand scheme of things that it wasn't like a huge amount of money in business, I love that it was something that was a milestone worth celebrating because I think that that's so important to not burning out as an entrepreneur is that we celebrate the journey instead of minimizing things and saying, oh, well, that only was part of the way where I, should have, would have, could have done X, Y, or Z because that was worth celebrating.
Absolutely. You're right where you need to be. I think most of the time. If we're looking too far forward, then we're out of the present moment. And that's hard as a woman in business is you want to compare yourself. We're taught a masculine frame. We're shown an example of how the masculine moves through the business world. And we don't get a lot of, empowered female examples to follow. And so we often try to compare ourselves to masculine men driven companies and it's tough. We have a different route. We have a different way of a different flow.
Yes. And embracing that gives us so much freedom as we, I think, often buy into, like you said, buy into these standards that don't serve us well. And that's just because that's how, business as usual has been done. But that doesn't mean we have to do it that way.
Right. Yeah, that's a whole other topic I could talk about. It's just, how to navigate the business world as a empowered feminine power, right?
Yeah.
Being sat in your femininity rather than trying to mask your masculinity to meet the men that you compete with. Yeah,
Right.
it's been a journey.
Yeah. That's one thing I wish I'd known earlier in my career, but I'm glad that I found that now and can, you know, unmask and just embrace like who I am and show up in my full humanity and know that that's enough for whatever space I walk into, that I don't need to, you know, emulate anyone else.
Yes, I hear you.
So let's talk more about this journey because things got a little bit complicated after you raised those funds and were working with an engineer that you trusted and they stole some of those funds. So, how did you find the strength to keep going after that betrayal?
Yes. So we raised the $23,000. And the first thing that we had kind of already decided to spend the funds on was an engineer. And it was an engineer that we had been referred to through friends. It was supposed to be this really great material science person. So, foolishly, we handed him a lot of our money before we received anything. Rookie mistake. And he took off and fled the country. And unfortunately, I think stole a lot more money from other people than ourselves. But yeah, it was defeating. I mean, I think it was our first moment where it was like, whoa. I mean, the amount of effort that it took, doing a 30-day campaign on Kickstarter and then just to, there was really nothing we could do to fight it at the time. I mean, one of my strengths is resilience. And just despite the defeat, we had the legging that we had given as the gift for Kickstarter supporters was this moto legging that I had designed, and we had produced probably 100 pairs in Los Angeles, and it was beautiful. It was moto styling. It had rose gold zippers. There was really nothing like it, and we got some wins. Carbon 38 had called us and wanted those leggings, and they were the new activewear e-commerce platform at the time. And we were like, yes, but we didn't have any to supply.
Right.
And then, we got a couple phone calls like that. And so we said, you know what, maybe we should start making a collection. And so, one defeat led to, one upside, which was, okay, we're going to start designing apparel. And so we started doing activewear and we got the accounts at the Pure Bars across the nation. And we started doing stuff for cheerleaders and dancers in the NBA and the NFL because, that was my network. And we just put our attention there. But I will say, alongside that, I never lost sight of my dream of coming up with that legging. And so rather than just being defeated, I was determined, used it as fuel. And I actually cold called a bunch of material science departments in the US. And then I realized there's one of the best in our backyard at the Colorado School of Mines. And I left a voicemail because I usually got voicemails. Hi, I'm Kady. I'm a dancer. I really have this idea. I mean, I can only imagine today what I sounded like. Just this just bright, sunny girl, just didn't know anything about business. I did end up getting a phone call back about 6 months later from my now partner in a separate venture from KADYLUXE. We do have a patented tech that we developed that's a hybrid material system that really achieves beyond my little knee pad idea. But it's a material that is as thin as a strand of your hair that can go in many applications. We ended up being co-inventors on this patent. It's a real long journey. My point is like one loss can lead to a win. I always believe in that law of balance. So
And the fact that you had the audacity to make that call, I think as I've been meeting more founders on the podcast and also reflecting on my life, some of the most transformational moments have come when I did something that in retrospect was incredibly audacious. And maybe I was a little bit naive when I did it, but that audacity, especially like in your case, that paid off because you got the patented technology, and then you also got a state accelerator award. So there was a financial award that came after you put in all of the work on this patent.
we did, yeah. First female in the state of Colorado to win that award, and that was incredible. My Dr. Terry Lowe knew about the grant programs, so he had said, "Let's go for it." And yeah, we had to get in front of everybody. We had to pitch our concept, and we actually ended up winning 2 awards. And that is what has funded our R&D on that project. So, yeah, very exciting. And I think you're right. Making the bold moves matters because that's what other people are not doing. How can you differentiate? You can definitely differentiate by being one that's like, well, I'm going to go left. Everyone's going right.
Yeah,
I'm just going to do it because you have nothing to lose.
I really don't. I'm thinking back to a moment where I was in college and I went to a career fair and everyone told me, freshmen don't go to career fairs. The firms that you're looking at, they don't hire freshmen. They don't do this. Why are you wasting your time? And I just think about how my life would look differently if I had listened to all of those people who just told me, this is not possible. This is not the way things are done. Don't do that.
There's lots of noise in the world of being an entrepreneur. Everyone wants to give you advice, everyone wants to tell you not to do certain things. I think there's other people that aren't and entrepreneurs that are sometimes maybe envious that are like you should just get a real job. So you get it coming from all different angles. So you just truly have to find your center, and if you have a vision and you keep your eye on that, it will transpire even if it takes time.
You've talked about this, about how you didn't have an educational background in engineering or in business or anything of that nature. But one of the things that I was reading about is you talked about your real world MBA. And I think some of these moments that we're talking about factor into that. But at one point, you took 7 trips to Shanghai and get your real world MBA and started to learn about global manufacturing because all of that was new to you. Can you tell me what led you to take the first trip? Why did you keep going back? What did you learn?
Yeah, being an entrepreneur, especially being a founder of your own company, is really a vehicle for your own self-development. I have learned so much about myself. I have developed as a person through the vehicle of KADYLUXE, so I'm so grateful for that. But as far as my education was pre-law, and so nothing to do with what I was doing. But there was always the next person put in front of me in my life, whether I was magnetizing that or blessed or in the right place in the right time. I don't know. But a person had put another person in my life who knew a couple in China. One was a New Jersey guy, older New Jersey guy, and then a true, like, native Shanghainese woman. And I had met them. I'd done a couple phone calls on their WeChat app back in the day. WeChat was pretty new. And we would make these phone calls and I would talk to this Jersey guy. And my boyfriend at the time was like, what are you? It was so bizarre because I would be up late night talking to these people.
Yeah.
And then, finally I said, well, I'm going to China. And I mean, it was a jaw drop because he's like, what do you mean? Well, they've invited me to come. So I remember, I think it cost me $500 to book a flight. I did. I sat in the way back of the plane and, you took that 15-hour flight. I had never traveled that far. I got off the plane and I remember seeing my name on a sign and there they were, Tina and Bob. And truly the rest is history because they became my pseudo Chinese family there. I mean, they collectively had about 80 years of apparel experience between the two of them. Were responsible for developing a lot of the fabrications that Victoria's Secret was using and just, all kinds of knowledge. And so they really took me under their wing and they taught me. And so I had made 5 trips in that first year, and I would get a hotel, and we would just get in cars, and we'd be driving to these little factories because they couldn't get me into anything really, like, classy or large because I was a little pea. I'm so grateful for people like that because they saw something inside me, they believed in me, and you need some people along the way. You need angels like that to come in along the way and believe in you and help you, and they're incredible. So now, I still go once a year. I work with some great factories. They're female ran. It's fantastic because I have a direct relationship now. And everything that I know about production, I learned from Tina and Bob.
I love that. And also, something that just is coming through as you talk is that you carry this confidence of what's for me is for me, and that you were really running your own race during this time. And I don't know if it felt that way as you were going through it, but you're kind of exuding that now that, you were just disciplined enough to be in the right place, knowing what your next step was, and trusting that what you needed was going to appear when you needed it.
I think now I've definitely developed more of that confidence, but at the time it was probably just blind naivete. I'm a bit of an adventurer free spirit, so I would always just say yes to things and they would work out.
To go hand in hand. And yeah, at least in my experience and of other people that I have had the opportunity to kind of witness their journeys. So, before you started your global manufacturing journey, one of the coolest things that I saw in your story was when you started working with these seamstresses who were exiled Mormon women in Colorado, and they produced your early collections. So, how did that partnership come about?
Oh, goodness. I have to send you a picture of me with one of them.
Yes,
After
please
this.
do.
I'm pretty proud of my savviness on this one. So I thought to myself, I'm in Colorado. There's really no industry here as far as manufacturing.
Right.
I wasn't traveling to LA anymore. So I thought, okay, if I was somebody that knew how to sew, where would I go in Colorado? I would go to the sewing machine store. So there was this old sewing machine shop called Ralph's Sewing in Denver. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to go down there. So I go down there and I asked for Ralph, and Ralph came out, and I said, Ralph, I am trying to make, this was when I was making leggings for the cheerleaders. I had flown in fabric from Italy and like I had this gorgeous Italian fabric, but I had no one to sew it. And it required a very specific machine and technical skill because we were using flat lock machines. And they're rare. They're expensive. They're not standard. So I go in there. I said, Ralph, I need somebody that has a flat lock machine in Colorado. Do you sell those? And he immediately was like, well, how does this girl know about flat lock machines? So he ended up being like, yes, actually, I do have this machine. I have a lady that I know owns one. She comes in, probably to service it. And here, let me give you her number. It's a real rural, he called it a rural community at the time. Said, okay, great. I get that number. I call this lady, and lo and behold, I end up meeting up with them. And it was a group of women, and they were all in their traditional garb. And when he calls them rural, I mean, yes, they were hiding in the Conifer Mountains because they had fled from Utah. Boy, could they sew. So they would wear their traditional garb. They actually couldn't get jobs because they refused to not wear their own clothing. And I think just a little bit of fear, but they wanted to make money. So their leader, she was spunky. I mean, she was a little rebel. She would go through the Starbucks drive-through with me and drink coffee and tell me not to tell anyone. And I would drive up to Conifer with my rolls of fabric, and I would sit with these ladies while they sewed very sexy NFL cheerleading costumes in their very traditional, like LDS, and they would sing.
Yeah.
They would sing while they sewed. They would ask me questions about, being a modern woman. Like they were surprised that I shaved my legs, just
Yeah.
I spent so many nights with these women. It was hilarious. And they could sew just incredibly.
One of the beautiful things I think about two things. One, when you don't have experience in an area, and so you are just kind of making your own way, and also the power of diversity of thought, because most people, if you had a background in fashion merchandising or something like that, like you probably would have taken a more traditional path, and some of these twists and turns in your journey may have never come about. But that's like really a beautiful thing in thinking outside the box and finding ways to solve solutions. And then you created a really like powerful community because you were helping these women and getting your needs met at the same time.
Yeah, it was pretty special. I mean, I learned a lot. We liked to just sit and inquire and talk to each other because we were completely different women and from different worlds. But we were making these NFL leggings. It's quite a memory.
Can imagine. Especially, I could just see as you were talking about it that it was kind of taking you back to the singing and the late nights and listening to their stories and the mutual wonder at how your lived experiences were so different.
Absolutely. I mean, they had pictures of Warren Jeff in their home, a very controversial figure. I could just see the humanity in these women. We
Mm.
had a bond, and we were just worlds apart on our beliefs, but it was special.
We need more of that in the world. There's people getting outside of their comfort zone and really bonding with people that have, in some ways, very little in common with them. But then, surprisingly, there's probably more in common than you'd originally realize when you think of how different your lives are.
Absolutely. I don't think the average person would even consider sewing with these women because of who they were, and maybe what they believed. But I saw beyond that, and they were taking a risk working with me. I mean, it wasn't allowed for them to be sewing, essentially. It wasn't allowed for them to be making push-up bras. It was a neat moment.
Absolutely love everything about that story. Let's talk about, you've been really open about how you felt when Lululemon entered the collegiate market, that you felt like you kind of hit a wall. Can you talk about what it felt like because you've been gaining so much momentum and then this is like a classic David and Goliath situation?
Yes, I love using that reference. We were the David and Goliath story in collegiate licensed sports for leggings. We really proved out. There was Nike in the space, and they were doing a classic black legging. You
Mhm.
probably saw one on your campus bookstore. Nobody was doing leggings at the time at the campus level. And so we had developed a pocket, we called it the pocket eye legging, and we ran it in team colors, and it had a little logo on the pocket. We really proved out the market. We started picking up tons of teams, and that was our number one product. We were cruising along in that space, and then Lululemon entered the market. Now, I don't know all the details, but I was told by the licensing company that Lululemon had seen us in the market and basically said, "Thank you." We proved it. We proved it out for them. So it was discouraging. It tabled us because most buyers would not buy our legging and Lululemon's legging. Limited open to buy dollars and obviously ginormous brand Lululemon. Huge, huge market share. That's when we had to get innovative. So in licensing, you have to pick a category that you're in. So t-shirts, fleece, and some of these categories are locked by the big players like Nike. So Lululemon had kind of come in and said, okay, we're just going to let them take activewear. And I said, okay, well, what is next? And what do I not see in the market? Again, it's like having to constantly innovate to stay relevant, but be true to our brand. And so we've gone through some brand iterations over the year. We actually about 3 years ago said, okay, that's when that moment was like, we're going to do knitwear and we're going to do more fashion because that's not here. And I had a designer. She was from Colorado. Tacey Nicole. She had been working with me on some of my activewear. Another great person that I had been introduced to and was fortunate to work with because she worked for huge brands. But she had been the right-hand gal to Betsy Johnson. Betsy Johnson's a sweater genius. She says, Kady, let's do a sweater. And I was like, yeah. And the first sweater we came up with was our love letter sweater. We just hit the market at the right time. We took a chain stitch embroidery machine, which is so hard to work with. She hand drew every single sweater, and it was cursive, which is just fun and feels vintage. And it would say like, Chicago Bulls, and then we would have, their little marks, and it was this cute boutique merino wool blend sweater. We put it up at the tailgate trade show. We'd been known for all this activewear, and now we've got this sweater, and we got some other things. We just went bananas on the sweater because no one had seen anything, and now we're in our third season of knitwear, and we're just expanding that category. So I'm like, Lululemon's incredible. I mean, what they've done is unbelievable. Now they're coming into the NFL. And so you just have to be like, okay, I always just believe there's space for everybody.
Yeah.
There is enough space for everybody. There's always going to be that big brand like Lululemon. But I think if you stay true to who you are, and we've become more of that boutique brand. We have this small community, and it's a different ethos than what Lululemon gives now.
And I think that there is so much power in that just mindset of abundance because I
Correct.
find that when people often work with clients on kind of scarcity mindsets and these crab in the barrel mentalities because it causes you to panic and make decisions that aren't wise when you're walking in abundance and realize, okay, well, maybe they might lock this category down, but here's some open space over here where we can compete and we can do something better than anyone else. Let's make our mark here. And that's allowed you to continue to grow and evolve. It doesn't come across that these, for some people, would have been obstacles like, oh no, gnashing of teeth, what do I do now? That you can hit a wall and simply go in a different direction.
Yeah, we lost overnight $1 million wholesale client.
Uh,
It also made us realize that, wow, we've got a lot of eggs in one basket. That's high risk for a company. We need to diversify. And at the time, we were only doing B2B. That's when it was like, wow, there are so many variables in life. I want to be able to control my own fate. That's when it was like, we have to go to direct to consumer. We have to create our own experience and go find our customers. And that's not easy to do. It's a different business than B2B wholesale. But it has been so wonderful and rewarding. And that has really been our blue ocean. Now that's where we want to put most of our energy. And I love scarcity mindset work because scarcity and abundance, because it's so deeply rooted in how we were brought up, our money stories, which we typically get from our parents. And so anyone that teaches that, like, that's incredible work.
yeah, and I love that you mentioned the blue ocean because I've been thinking about that book as we've been talking, just how you found blue ocean after blue ocean after blue ocean.
Yeah. And in the sports licensing world, you have to, because there's always someone trying to get in after you, right?
So one of the biggest kind of pivot points for you was the Denver Broncos deal, which I saw described all over the internet as the fastest women's sellout in Broncos history. And I saw all of these news articles saying that women were literally undressing mannequins in the team store. So like people were hyped. So how did you position KADYLUXE to land that opportunity and what did it change for you?
It was a real special year this last year. The NFL has always been my dream. It's been my big dream because I know the kind of doors and the opportunity that opens up for a brand like mine. So I've had my eye on that, and it's probably one of the hardest license to tap into. It's a male dominant world. It's been like this big giant dream where I'm like, wow, how's this ever going to happen? It goes back to my roots in dance and cheerleading. The cheerleading coach at the Denver Broncos, we had been outfitting the cheerleaders. I had been attending their conference every year as a guest and continuing in that space. And it just took the cheerleaders. I think they made a referral to headquarters corporate and said, hey, you guys need to work with this local brand. So in NFL, local licensing comes up every 2 years. So the NFL allows each team to usually have one or two local license if you don't have the league license. Sometimes it's very rare does a team get to work with an apparel local license, right? It's a alcohol company or, a roofing company, something like that, right? For the Broncos, they were like, wow, this is incredible. But I just have to thank the cheerleaders because they really went to bat for us and championed us. So I'll never forget. It was 2025, March, my birthday last year. I'd just gotten home from Brazil. I'd spent a week down with the tribes and I had sat with ayahuasca for 3 sits. And that journey is just will shift your whole world. And one of the things that I was battling through down there was staying small. And ayahuasca was showing me how much bigger I was, how expansive I was, but I was playing so small. There had been, I'd say, as a business, we have done everything that a $20 million business does except scale. And so the frustration that was building. And then when I get home from Brazil, I get a phone call from the Broncos out of the blue. And it's like, hey, we want to work with you guys. Come on down. I couldn't believe it. It was so exciting. So getting that contract has been so joyful for me, because such a delight, because I'm a native Colorado. So, have always been a Broncos fan, and we really got to show the world who we are and what we can do. Getting a contract like that, I got to bring in some new people on my team. We did a rebrand with KADYLUXE. We made 6 beautiful licensed pieces for them, and the way that we designed them and merchandise them, we got to have a front and center spot in the team store. This just doesn't happen. The real estate in team stores usually is taken by Nike and all the players, but because they love the product, it was women owned. The day of home opener, it was September 7th. I was riding down in an Uber, and our contact at Broncos was like, "It's selling out, it's selling out." And and the game hadn't started. Like, I hadn't even got there. She's like, "I think we're sold out, Kady." And I just burst into tears, because the response that we had that day, the whistle hadn't blown. I finally get down to the team store. Everything's gone. And when we had a massive display, we had sweaters stacked, and we had mannequins dressed, and women had stripped the mannequins. I took a picture of myself that day next to the empty merchandise section. And this journey with Broncos has been incredible. We have women. Yeah, we've been one of the fastest selling brands for the Broncos, one of the most profitable brands for the Broncos. I believe Broncos ownership said to us, your brand has made our brand better. And the women, this fan base they're passionate. And the women, they come up to me. This is my favorite. We'll attend a game, and we'll be at club level, and we'll see my little love letter. We see all my product is around. And so at times I'll just, for fun, go up to a girl and I go, "Oh, wow, I really love your sweater." And she's like, "Oh, do you know it? It's KADYLUXE." I said, "Yeah, I do. I'm Kady." They go bananas, and they're like, "Thank you." And we've had women be like, "Thank you. We've been waiting for you," And so it's just given us so much joy and confidence that, like, we're doing the right thing. Even though it's hard, even though there's so many gatekeepers in the NFL, we really, we're so excited for year 2, and we're really excited to have more teams down the way.
I just keep thinking that if I'd had KADYLUXE in college, that would have been my uniform. I would have been the KADYLUXE girl, because the designs are like so much up my alley. And I was so tired of wearing little boys' jerseys
Yeah.
to all of my sporting events and around campus. But one of the things I love about you sharing that was just the solidarity between women at so many stages of your journey, the cheerleaders advocating for you to get you in front of the right opportunity. And because there's often this narrative that women don't do this, that we don't show up for each other in this way.
Mm.
And
Mhm.
that's absolutely false. And so I just loved hearing time and time again how different communities of women have paved the way, have created opportunity, stepped in to fill in the gaps, and then have showed up to buy out your collections.
And that's the ethos of our brand, is giving each other permission to express ourselves. And it is cool to just see other women feel like they belong when they see another girl in our item. "Oh, is that KADYLUXE? I'm collecting all 6 pieces," and things like that. What I love too is that what we've created is not necessarily, like, at the college level, there's a lot of apparel for like the 18, 19, 20-year-old. They're wearing the little bandos and they want to wear less clothing, right? But what about the fan base that, like us, alumni, the moms? I mean, that's where we meet them, because it's just that higher end, classy, timeless. I mean, because they've been forgotten.
And you just kind of touched on this a little bit about your philosophy, but the KADYLUXE logo is the queen chess piece. And I love how you say she can move in any direction, but how does that philosophy show up day to day in your company culture and the queendom that you've built?
My original logo was a queen chess piece. We've retired the queen chess piece, but I think it's a sweet story. I was told that you're like a chess piece, Kady. Like you can you know you're so powerful. You can move in any direction. That has been some of my journey. One of my values is freedom, and I think that we bring that into the culture at KADYLUXE. Most of my employees or contractors have autonomy and freedom and balance, and we invite freedom of ideas, freedom of expression. People don't get a lot of hand-holding in my company. It is that spirit of the queen. She's the most powerful piece on the board. She can move in any direction, but she can also easily be stolen. And I guess how that kind of came over into the design is that, especially when we were doing activewear, everything was made to move with you, like move with your body and not restrict you. And being able to wear something and it would move through your whole day. So
You originally started shipping from your garage and now have a significantly larger business. So, can you talk about some of the operational systems or mindsets that have helped you scale to the point where you are without absolutely losing your mind? Because it is significant. And when we look at the percentage of women owned businesses that scale to the level where you are, like it is an accomplishment in and of itself.
thank you. Well, yes, we started in my garage and we were working from my home. And then we upgraded to our own warehouse and we had a retail front and a warehouse in the back. That was moving and grooving for a while. And then we had too much product and we had to get more of just a full warehouse. And not until the end of about Halloween last year, we finally were like, we're going to outsource to a 3PL. And I think it's that kind of mindset of where's a bottleneck in our business? Where is this taking up way too much of my bandwidth? We need to outsource that. And we packed up the entire warehouse in the middle of our season because we had mold in our building. We were getting kicked out the door, but I think for good reason because it was time for us to expand because now in 26 and moving into 27, as we start to scale and bring on investment and think much larger and potentially bring on many more NFL teams, our warehouse we would never would have survived. And so I think, to answer your question, the best thing for me has always been looking at my time as a founder and anyone on my team's time and where do we have bottlenecks? Where are we in the weeds? How can we outsource that? And especially now today with Claude agents and AI, we're thinking and starting to develop a lot of that too, because I'm not afraid of AI. I think AI is like an enhancement to my team. I inspire my team to be like, let's get an agent working for you 24/7, doing all the things that you don't need to be doing so that I can get more of your gift. You can give this company your gift because that's what we want to pay for. And so, what an incredible thing because I think prior to AI, we didn't have that luxury.
And I love that you're framing AI as a tool to make better jobs instead of replacing jobs because it can allow people to automate so much of the tedious parts of their work that aren't necessarily value added and allow them to spend more time in their kind of zone of genius, which is exactly what you said, where you get the most out of them and they are the most fulfilled.
AI is a big topic right now in the space of photography and modeling and content creation. And for us as a brand, we've decided that we're human first. And we think that people can feel the difference between an AI photo and a human photo. And that is what we want to stick to. But then AI can do so many other functions in our company in operations, data input, customer service recovery. Golly, there's so many. We were just talking about all the things that we want to teach our agent, and it still requires a human to prompt, to train. I can't just let that agent go loose with my customer service. Someone still has to oversee it. So I'm excited for it.
It's interesting how much it has been coming up in interviews across industries because it's changing the way that we do everything.
It is, and we're having to, I think, my advice for anybody in entering the job market is you've got to attain new skills. I've got a gal on my team, she's younger, 25, and she has to continually try to attain new skills because learning how to work with AI is going to be a in-demand skill set.
Just that ability, I was just talking to my husband about this. the value in being willing to step up and embrace new technologies and learn instead of being afraid of them and just shutting down and saying, I'm not going to engage in that, or I don't care to learn that, that's not something that really serves anyone well. And if you can take the opposite of that mentality, it will really open doors.
And be okay with investing. I think another thing when you're trying to scale and or when you're as you're growing is that mindset. There's a lot of pay to play. There's a lot of where you have to take the leap and spend the money because it'll come back for you in a larger capacity in a bigger way. We made a huge investment in Broncos. We went above and beyond. We were like, we're going all in and it paid off.
So let's get into that a little bit more and talk about the real numbers because our audience needs to hear this part of the business. What would you say is your most pressing financial or financial operations challenge right now?
So, we're a consumer products CPG companies. We have to hold physical inventory and we're
Yes.
making a product. Both of those things are extremely challenging compared to selling a digital product that can just be resold over and over and over and over. You create one time. We're constantly having to create. I think a bottleneck or a challenge is you have to have enough capital. We have seasonality in our business, and we have times where we have to put a lot of money up to buy, and then so a lot of money going out the door. And then it takes time for it to get produced or designed, produced, get put on a boat, then get delivered, then get invoiced, and then you have term. So it can be a long cash cycle. So having the proper line of credits and I think looking back, a mistake, if I could go back, was I'm proud of the grind, the grit that we've had, but it's kept us small by not being properly capitalized
Yes.
at the right time. So, because money is fuel in a business. If you know how to deploy it properly, if you've proven all for us, if you've proven everything out, all your costs, your margins, your profitability, everything's healthy. If you've done that, money's fuel.
Love that you mentioned if you have done that and proved those things out first, that money is fuel, because often I see people make the mistake of going for the money first when they haven't proved those things out and then burning through the money or using different types of capital for a purpose they're not well suited for. So, like you're using a line of credit because you have a long cash cycle on your producing your goods and holding that inventory. Whereas sometimes people will get a line of credit and they will use it for capital expenditures or something where that cash is not going to return and not realizing the impact that that's going to have on the overall cash flow of their business. So, you definitely raise excellent points. Both of those are really a lot of wisdom in that answer.
mean, nowadays, I think about it. How is that adding revenue to the top line? If I'm adding someone on my head count, if I'm going to invest in a contractor, what if I'm going to invest in ad spend? How is that equating to revenue? Because we're trying to bring ops expenses down and we're trying to grow without having to necessarily, I think that's again backed on the AI. A lot of companies used to have to take a lot of investment because they had to invest in so many people. We're hoping that in this day and age, we can kind of keep headcount where it is, maybe make a couple more hires, but our investment can go into product and advertising because assortment depth for us and channel concentration are our focus.
Because I nerd out on these things, do you mind me asking what is your favorite tool for tracking the different key metrics in your business, if you have one?
I have become a lot sharper with keeping my eye on the metrics, but in years past, I'm a creator, I'm a designer, so I'm just like, yep, money's in the bank. It'll be there, more of just in the clouds. So that's something that I have had to be more disciplined. I'd say my favorite tools is a really good CFO. Doesn't have to be a full-time position, but somebody that's going to meet with you every month and mine sets KPIs. We can choose any marker. Do we want to look at how much direct to consumer sales we did this month compared to last month? Do we want to look at our budget on our P&L and be like, are we on budget this month? I think being able to look, you need to just always be looking because otherwise it'll compound, compound, compound. Then you get to the year end, you're trying to close your financials. and you're just pulling your hair out, you know? And if you don't know your numbers, and this is something that I can say because I've been in the pain. If you don't know your numbers, you don't know your business. It's a hobby then at that point.
An expensive hobby.
Very, because you could be losing money and just burning cash. So you need to know your numbers. I mean, you have to have that much respect for your finances. And in the past, I hadn't, because I was like, I just want to make great product.
I'm glad you have the CFO partner that is helping you, meeting with you monthly. And for listeners, I do not set people up to answer these questions about CFOs or accountants, but I do love when that's the answer. Obviously, I'm biased because that is so critical, especially when that is not your native language, because the language of accounting and the story it tells about your business. When we talked about acquiring skills, that's another skill that you have to acquire, but it does pay dividends when you are able to engage in those conversations and when you have the right support to help you focus on not all of the numbers, but these are the numbers that are most crucial to meeting your goals so that you can actually make informed operational decisions.
It's so important. I mean, I am a complete supporter of having a financial model built, understanding it. And it's overwhelming to look at P&Ls, balance sheets, models. But when you have somebody, it's worth every penny to have that support person that is a money person. Invest in that person that is going to look at your numbers every month and make sure, because if you're not that person, go pay for it.
Yes.
Worth every penny.
So as we're kind of wrapping up, what would you say is the next bold shift for KADYLUXE, and where are you taking the queendom next?
Yes, we have our eyes set on working with more NFL teams and doing what we did with the Broncos for the Seahawks, for the Kansas City Chiefs. And a lot of the teams are reaching out. I think we have one more year in our local license, and we're really hoping to be a partner with the NFL and just carve out our space. I think that is our largest goal. And growing our direct to consumer business. I think wholesale is a good, healthy business, but doing e-commerce in this world is exciting. And there's so many customers to go find and attain, and trying to be a brand that's going to be here next year and the year after. How do you create that consistent revenue that you can rely on and scale? So we're currently taking on an investment. It's our first time, and we're ready to rock and roll. We're gonna let that rocket ship go. We're gonna throw the fuel on just right in. So we're excited.
I am excited for you, and I will be following your journey and can't wait to see what's next. And also looking out for my favorite teams to join the catalog.
Bulls and Blackhawks this season,
Oh, amazing.
and your alma mater, University of Illinois. We just picked them up this season as well. We're always taking on new teams and starting to get a little more hyper focused on the ones that make the most sense for our product.
And for everyone listening, that's Kady Zinke, founder and CEO of KADYLUXE, showing that you can turn bruised knees and broken trust into a brand that empowers women from the arena to everyday life. If you want to support what she's building, visit KADYLUXE.com and follow her journey at KADYLUXE on Instagram. And we'll have all of this in the show notes. And if you are a purpose-driven leader trying to scale without losing your soul, or if you're just one more setback away from wondering if it's worth it, I think Kady's story is a powerful reminder that it is. And she also was generous enough to offer us a coupon code for listeners, KL Purpose 15, for 15% off your entire order. So I hope you all are able to find your favorite teams on the KADYLUXE site, and that's Kady, Kady, so that you can find some things that help you embrace your sports fandom and femininity. And as always, if this conversation resonated with you, here's what you can do. Subscribe to the Purpose Profit Shift wherever you listen to podcasts. We've got episodes dropping regularly with more visionary founders and change makers who are reshaping how business gets done. And if you found value in today's episode, leave us a rating and review. It helps other values-driven leaders find us. Until next time, keep leading with intention, scaling responsibly, and building businesses that matter. I'm Rachel Bernier Green, and this is the Purpose Profit Shift.